What is up, guys, and welcome to webinar number 2 for Nerva Plus. Now, today we're talking about all things consistency, specifically around the training front. Now, as you can see here, the driving force for progression is always going to start with consistency. Okay, so we're going to touch on this. It's a really good place to start. And then we're going to go into a little bit more depth. Okay, jumping into this slide, we're going to be going into depth specifically around internal cueing, external cueing, the mind-body connection, why training isn't just about intensity, because in today's era, everyone either wants to train really hard or they just want to really focus on mind-muscle connection. So we're going to kind of debunk that a little bit. We're going to talk about breaking the myth of no pain, no gain. We're going to discuss building sustainable habits because we know that habits eventually stem to finding a complete groove with health and wellness. Now, we know that if we drink X amount of water, if we're doing a good amount of steps and we're training 3 to 4 times per week, our health is going to be optimized. Okay, so we're going to discuss that a little bit as well. And overcoming plateaus. A lot of people are quite daunted by plateaus. They get a little bit intimidated and they don't really know how to push through them. So we'll discuss that and how to really embrace a plateau, because to be honest, it's an opportunity to really upscale your health and fitness. Now, when we look at training specifically and we talk about intensities, we're going to discuss RPE, so that's rate of perceived exertion. We're going to talk about RIR, which is RIR is basically a term for reps in reserve. So it's pretty similar. It's basically a way to gauge intensity, okay? So we're going to get there as well. And then, of course, we're going to finish off with a Q&A. Now, perfection largely sucks, okay? Perfection is unattainable. And I think if we aim to be this high, we really just aim to, we get there for 1 week and then the next week we kind of just crumble. A nice little analogy to look at here is if you had like Mount Everest, and don't quote me to the actual Mount Everest term, but really when we're looking at Mount Everest, you climb up and if you really get to the top, it's like, yes, I did it. But then you got to go back down. There's some really good highs and then there's some really low lows. And that's everything in life, whether it's work, whether it's training, whether it's going for a run, whether it's going to the gym. You just want to aim to be, and like I always tell my team, just try and be like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 because it's consistent, it's easy, it's attainable. And although it's hard in the moment, it is really easy to maintain that sort of effort, okay? Being perfect is just really setting yourself up for failure. And I see it all the time. People are like, I want to give it the gym session 10 out of 10. I want to give you 10 out of 10 for 20 weeks. And we see 6 weeks of perfection. And then we see a real big crash and burn effect, okay? So as we can see through this graph, we work through it, making small yet sustainable changes is going to be the key for maximal results here. So you're going to have days that you're not going to win, and you're going to have days where you are going to come out of them and be like, I couldn't have done anything better. That's okay. Just understand that it's always going to be linear. If the goal is muscle gain and you're literally trying to track like this, at the end, you're going to be up here, okay? Whereas being perfect, you're going to go up and you're going to go down. Something I experienced massively with my competition days, and this is why I'm so big on it, is when I was competing, I would honestly find that I like felt so good on the day. And then 2 weeks later, I felt rubbish. And it was because I was eating no food, pushing myself to its true limits, being perfect. And then after, you'd eat whatever you want. And then imperfection became a little bit more present. And then, yeah, you're not feeling your best. So consistency over perfection is how we get long-lasting results. Okay, we're not after a short fix here. We're after changing your lifestyle and improving your health for the long run. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, micro adjustments and the magic. Okay, so if you're wondering what a micro adjustment is, it's when we manipulate tempo. It's when we manipulate stimuli. So changing the stimulus from maybe glutes to shoulders, or at least the focus anyway. And then we have different modalities like drop sets, rest pause methods, partial reps, quarter pulses, and there is a lot more to go through. But what we might try and do here, guys, is just localize on those ones I've just discussed after we discuss tempos, changing stimuli, and we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. So tempo, the easiest way to remember tempo is that always with the eccentric portion of the movement is when you want to start implementing the count. So if you're doing a bicep curl and you're curling out for 3, 2, 1, holding it for 2, coming up for 1, and squeezing for 2, you would see this on a program as 3, 2, 1, 2. And this basically is a way for us to slow down the movement to induce more hypertrophy. And cutting out all the fancy chat there, all we really want to focus on here, guys, is if we slow the movement down, we can make the movement harder. It's just a way to gauge intensity and make things harder for you, okay? Same thing as your modalities. Like if you have a rest pause method versus a drop set is essentially you choose a weight. Let's say, for example, we're doing a goblet squat. We do 25 reps with that weight, okay? We rest for 30 seconds, we go again. And what we're going to notice is the first set might be 25 reps, the second set might be 20 reps, the third set might be 18 reps, and then the fourth set might be 10. Hey, it could be completely different to that as well. So a rest pause method is when the reps regress, and so they should, because fatigue is setting in. Again, we're making things harder. Much like a drop set, instead of your reps shrinking, you're now looking at your weights coming back, okay? So a drop set might be you do curls with 30 kilograms, and then your next set you drop it to 20, but it's the same sort of effect. You can only get 12 reps. So you're getting like 12 reps, 12 reps, 12 reps, but you're dropping the weight, okay? So remember, rest pause method, you're dropping the reps. Drop set, you're dropping the weight, okay? Different modalities, you've got the quarter pulses like we were talking about before. I think in this movement here, I'm actually doing partial reps. So this is a barbell upright row or a Smith machine upright row. And here we're taking the bar to our belly button, okay? And you're probably thinking like, that could look a little bit silly, or like, why would I only do half reps when I could do full reps? And it's a good question, because when you do full reps, you're taking the muscle through all the muscle fibers, okay? And what induces muscle growth is two things: progressive overload, so increasing the demand on the tissue. And then what you want to do is you're going to be doing partial reps. So then from the partials, you're getting just a little bit of different stimuli in different muscle fibers, okay? So full reps are always going to be best, okay? Okay, so full reps are always going to be best, but then when you are doing your shorter reps, you're just recruiting different muscle fibers, you're keeping fatigue going, okay? So both have their place, but full reps are your most fundamental movement, and then you can start looking at partials and stuff like that. In regards to different modalities, there's a method called the 8x8 method, which is when you do 8 reps, you rest for 30 seconds, you do 8 reps, you rest for 30 seconds, you do 8 reps, and so on for 8 sets. Another way to gauge further fatigue, okay? So that's your different modalities. So we know tempo is a way to make things harder. On tempo though as well, guys, is what you want to focus on is don't have tempo for every movement. Or if you have a coach and he's allocating you tempo, just make sure that it's not for every movement and every program, because what happens is you'll lose focus of just moving sheer heavy weight, okay? Tempo is really well utilized, but I tend to use it on about 4 out of all 6 lifts on each day. So there'll be about 6 or 7 movements per week that I'm not using tempo. A barbell back squat's a good one. You're just trying to move weight, okay? You're working on that sheer force out of the bottom, out of the hatch of the squat. Tempo is not really needed there, okay? But yeah, to summarize, tempo and modalities are just a way to accumulate more fatigue. And then when we're looking at changing stimuli, you can ride programs out for 8, 10, 11 weeks if you wanted to, but the sweet spot's about 6 to 7, okay? Weeks 1 and 2 is all about learning the new technique and then slowly intensifying things. And here's where your RPE is lower. Then week 3 and 4, you're actually doing more greater effort in the gym, but here you're adding maybe some more sets or some more reps. You're sprinkling in things to make things harder. Then weeks 5, 6, and 7 is where you're really pushing the limits. You've got nothing left in the tank, okay? But then after that, you want to change the stimuli. So if the focus is glutes for one block, cool. Then move on to shoulders for the next block. You don't want to be hitting glutes, 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 or you don't want to just be doing a hip thrust, a hip thrust, a hip thrust, a hip thrust. Sure, similar movements are great, but you need to be changing up your exercise selection and get a little bit crafty with the approach. Otherwise, you're not really going to force the muscles to grow. Jumping into the next slide, we have the mind-body connection. Training smart and not just hard, okay? This is such a good one because when we look at training, it's so important to have details of both. You need to train hard and you need to have a smart approach. But if you just train hard and not smart, very underproductive. And if you just train smart with no intensity, well, that's not going to be too good either, okay? So you need to find that balance of I'm going to train smart and understand the fundamentals of what I'm doing, and then I'm going to train hard. Then once that's exhausted, I then move on to the new stimuli like we just talked about on the previous slide. So exercise selection. If someone comes to me and they're like, Lock, I want to grow my glutes and hamstrings. I don't really care about my arms though. This is when I go, sweet, I'm going to give you, say, 6 sets of arms per week, maybe 20 sets of legs per week. See, that straight away is a smart decision for that individual. Now, it's important that we still give them some arms so that everything can tone up at the steady rate as well. You don't just want to give them what they want. You really need to understand that there's going to be essence of what you want and what you need. You need a combination of both. Some things might suck and some things might be really enjoyable. Probably more important than we do about a 50-50 spread when it comes to enjoyment versus just tough work, okay? We talked about needs and wants, and see how you feel in the day. If you don't feel like training or your lower back sore, take the day off. I think expectations on ourselves at the moment with social media are a little bit high. We feel as though if I've got a leg day booked into Tuesday, I have to be there, rain, hail, or shine. In this case, lower back pain, knee pain, or elbow pain. Take the day off, rest, listen to your body, maybe hit upper body instead, and then get to the legs the next day, okay? All right, building sustainable habits, not quick fixes. And this is something that I talked about in the intro, and I didn't want to give too much away on the topic. Kind of did though, okay? So you want to set yourself up for daily habits, whether it's water intake, steps, whether it's training. All you need to do is integrate small things. Now, I'm talking about aspects across the board. If you drank a bottle of wine each night, just drink 1 glass per night. And then after a week, maybe take that glass out altogether. Don't expect to go from the whole bottle to nothing. We call it a cold turkey approach. You don't need to do that. Rather, just take the win, and the win in this situation is reducing the intake of alcohol. Now, if you're having water and you drink 1 liter a day, I was saying to Olivia the other day, just increase your water to 2. She's like, what about 3? And I was like, don't go to 3. And this is going to come back to that other topic of perfection and consistency. You don't need to drink 3, just drink 2. Nail that for a week, okay? Integrate your steps. What about, Lock, I'm only doing 6K steps per day. Cool. Do 7K per day. Rinse and repeat that. Once you nail that, then increase your steps to 8. Okay, it's all about building consistency with these small habits, because in the long run, when we look at water, steps, training, and nutrition, if we can nail water, nail steps, nail your nutrition, and nail your training, and all of the above, well, then you are going to get phenomenal results. But it always starts with small, integratable, positive habitual changes. Okay. Now, progress over time. Now, you probably look straight at the red line and go, well, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty aggressive. That looks pretty strong. And I'm going to get some pretty insane results. And you're not wrong. It looks good there. But what we're not showing here, yes, we can see the blue line is going to be quicker. But what we're not showing here is after that red reaches that point, it then goes down. I see it all the time. And it's a real issue in the fitness industry at the moment. You do not need to do 20K steps per day for 6 months. You do not need to eat no processed foods. You do not need to go to the gym and do everything that you hate to do because someone has told you to. Rather, find enjoyment in what you like to do. And then, like I said before, sprinkle in some of the tough work as well, and then gradually build that up over time. Now, also what this graph represents to me, and is something that people probably don't witness, that a coach and the reasoning behind why a coach would allocate something. Okay, so let's say we're looking at a training program. When we're looking at that training program, if the sets are specifically set up for strength, okay, that is not just to get strong for 4 weeks and then forget about it. For me, I would allocate some power movement, some strength movement, some power movement, some strength movement. And then once that individual has built up strength, we can now push in hypertrophy work. So, good example here. We have 2 individuals. One individual goes to the gym and does the same thing week on week. Progressively overloads progressively overloads movements, but just does the same movements week on week. Versus the other individual does strength, power, hypertrophy, strength, power, hypertrophy. Now, this individual here will get far better results, because if you go to a bench press and you're doing 70 kilos on a bench press and you go 71 the next week, 72 the following week, 75 the following week, stay on 75 for a month. Why this individual's just built up power and strength, power and strength, power and strength. This individual can now be benching 90 kilograms, while this one is only at 80 kilograms. Okay, so do you see what I'm getting at here? If you can build up power and build up strength with a movement and then go back to hypertrophy with a heavier load, you will induce more muscle mass, sit there for a couple of weeks, then go power and strength again. Okay, So if you hit a plateau, it's something to embrace. It's something to understand that you're doing something wrong. And don't just push through it and just hope for the best, because that will never work. You need to brainstorm things, okay? So if you're not losing fat, take a 2-week diet break. Sure, those 2 weeks, you're not going to lose fat. But thereafter, you might see some accelerated fat loss because you've just taken some rest, reduced cortisol, found your love for dieting back for the next couple of weeks anyway, and then you move on. We see the same thing with menstrual cycles as well. Females have their period, and when they get their period, they're trying to push the limits when really their body is telling them to do the exact opposite. When you're going through your cycle, you probably want to just take 1 week of training off and then come back stronger, more motivated, and it's just going to be better for your physical and mental health, okay? All right, Q&A session, guys. So thank you so much for investing in your wellness. I really appreciate you showing up. And for here, all we want to really try and do, guys, is debunk some health and fitness myths. Or if you want to know more about training, please do let me know. Now, I'm going to scrape up some, I'm going to jump in and get us some questions from my IG. If anyone has any other questions, please jump in for us. All right. All right, so the first question we have here is, can I get great muscle gain results from home? And the answer is definitely yes, okay? But it's always going to depend on the scenario here. So if you haven't lifted a weight before, you could train from home for a year easily, okay? Or until you stop feeling motivated, okay? So that's the key here. I find training from home can be a bit tedious, can be a bit boring. So you need to spice up your program. You need to keep it fun. You need to keep it interesting. And you probably want load that goes to, say, a 30-kilogram dumbbell. Now, if you've never lifted a weight before, start with body weight. When that gets tough, add some bands. When that gets tough, add some weights. And as you can see, this is going to take some time. When you nail a squat, then add a quarter pulse. When you feel like you've done the quarter pulse and you've exceeded 30 kilograms, add another dumbbell, work your way up to 60 kilograms total. So definitely can make serious results from home. You do not need the gym, okay? It's only when you start losing enjoyment for training or you increase the load too far that you can't actually push anymore. But when we look at like a lateral raise or a bicep curl, easy. I've got two 30-kilogram dumbbells at home, which is 60 kilograms total. Lateral raise, I'd be lucky to do 22 to 25 per arm. So I still have 7 to 10 kilos left in me there, okay? So it just goes to show, find the movements that you want to, I guess, incorporate to make more, to induce more muscle gain, I should say. And then once you've found those movements, progressively overload them in any manner that you find possible. Even during COVID, I was getting like little, I wouldn't say little books, but I was getting like milk cartons or books, and I was doing lateral raises that way and hitting higher reps to accumulate more fatigue. So there's definitely possibilities across the board. Okay, I've got a question here saying, I've been training for 3+ years. I train hard, but without a program. Is this okay? Now, it's okay, technically, but when we, again, it depends on what okay actually means in this scenario. If you're just training to have fun, sweet, which is important, okay? But why not have fun and have a selective program built for you that is going to guarantee results? You may as well get your best bang for your buck when it comes for time, okay? So if you're going to train for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, have a program in play. If you're looking at your physique and you're like, I really need to grow my glutes because they're non-existent at the moment, implement more glutes. Or if you feel like my knees are getting really sore, maybe I should just go to the physio. Instead of spending more money in this scenario, like we talked about with Richard last week, is it's so important that if your knees are sore, you build up your vastus medialis, which is going to protect your knee joint. Then see a professional, even if the best combination would be a PT and a physio together, so they can work in overall synergy to go, this is the problem, and then the PT can go, this is how we solve it, or the coach or whatever professional you have helping you in the gym, okay? So with that being said, you definitely need a program, because without a program, there's no direction, okay? You need to have goals, both short-term and long-term. You need to have programs either written by yourself or a professional. You need to be pushing the boundaries, because why else would you do it? If you're waking up at 5:30 a.m. and going to the gym 3 to 4 times per week, you may as well make the most of it and get a program, okay? Now I think I had two other questions here as well. Okay, so we have one here on anatomy. It actually says anatomy. Why do you care so much about it? Just kind of what we talked about then, guys. Anatomy is going to be pivotal. If we understand the human body, we're going to understand how to really push the boundaries and improve our health. Okay. If we understand that smoking affects our lungs, we don't smoke as much. Okay. The data is evident there. Okay. If we know that a bottle of alcohol, like we talked about before, is probably not good for our health, then we reduce it. Okay. So understanding that about the body, the liver, the lungs, whatever you want to talk about when it comes to training, you need to understand the anatomy of your body. If you want to grow better biceps, there's so much more to just training your biceps through a general curl. You need to understand the heads of the biceps, much like the triceps. You need to understand that there's 3 heads. How do I target those 3 heads? Literally treat it like a roadmap. If I was going to drive from the Gold Coast down to Melbourne, I might choose some pit stops along the way. You're not just going to do one leg of driving. You'll choose some spots to stay and appreciate, much like the muscles, okay? Now, when we look at the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, it's important that we don't just do a barbell back squat to hit those muscle groups. Now, barbell back squats are great. I know a lot of people saw on the podcast that we did a couple of months back that they're like, oh, you hate barbells. And that's not the case. They're not the best tool to use within a toolkit if we're looking at like muscle growth. I think dumbbells can be far better. Okay. But when we understand like a barbell is good as a compound movement. So you're going to be working multiple muscle groups. You're going to be working the lower pec, the middle pec, the upper pec, a little bit of delts, a little bit of tricep. Fantastic. But if we wanted to target the upper chest, if we understand that the upper chest really is going to be hit from a guillotine press, which is a high incline press that comes to about here. So you bring the bar a bit higher, you will be able to grow your upper chest far quicker. So if I look at someone's photo and I go, okay, he's got a strong chest, but we could definitely work on the upper part near his collarbone. And I go, have you tried a guillotine press or a cable, a chest fly? And he goes, no, I haven't. We could do 6 sets of that per week and build that specific muscle group up, recruit as many fibers in there as possible, and he's getting far better results. Same thing goes for hamstrings, quads, legs in general. If you want better quads, do more leg extensions, short step lunges, cyclist squats. If you want more hamstrings and glutes, squat a bit deeper. You might hit some hamstring curls, some hip thrusts, some frog thrusts, some side step ups. There's so many to go through, okay? So yes, you need to understand the human body, not just for results, but just for general education. It's cool to know. So really delve into that, guys. Your favorite exercise to be done in the gym? A lateral raise. Now, I'm going to say a lateral raise because you just can't beat it. You get fatigue of the deltoids so easily. It's a low risk for injury. I think they make the physique look large and in charge, which is pretty cool. You can do a couple of sets and you look quite pumped up. I used to do them all the time before I went on stage, and that just gave the physique the cherry on top, okay? But beyond look, they're just fun to train. They're easy to burn up. You can get their fibers on pretty quick. I also love that, like, the shoulders as a whole, hitting them, the back head, so your rear delt, your anterior head, and your medial head, you can actually hit them so easily from different angles just from some basic education. Like if you do a lateral raise and you bring the dumbbell up and you turn your hand a little bit at the top, as well as squeezing the dumbbell hard with your hands, you will feel your delts on fire. Versus if you wanted to hit your rear delts, you could literally turn side onto a cable, you could hunch forward, and then you could pull and shorten your range of motion, and you'll get a lot more out of your rear delts. So on that note as well, guys, the biggest tip with any exercise in the gym, not necessarily legs, upper body, squeeze the dumbbells hard. Now, I want you to all try this. If you're at the gym and you're doing bicep curls, squeeze the bar hard the whole time. Now, your brain won't want to, but that's because it's harder. If you squeeze the dumbbells harder, you'll actually see the muscle, it contracts straight away. So when you squeeze, you're already starting that stimuli off. You're making the job so much easier. Same goes for a lateral raise. Same goes for an extension. Every upper body exercise, squeeze the dumbbells hard. Allow your brain to understand, like, oh, that's the muscle we're training. Then go hard on it, okay? Thanks so much, guys, for diving in. I really appreciate you. And I'll catch you next week, I believe, or in a fortnight's time. And otherwise, I really hope you have enjoyed episode 1 and 2. I know 1 was just amazing with Richard, and we can't wait to see you at the next one.